Hi everyone, this is Raven. In this episode, we have a conversation about praise. It came about through a conversation I had with a slave who wanted my opinion about praise. They brought concern to their master, wondering why they, the slave, never gets praise. The master replied, any praise the master gets is showered upon the slave. Hence the title of this conversation, where we talk about praise. Enjoy.
You are listening to Structured by Design, conversations about living in hierarchical relationships.
Okay.
No, because I was about to start the conversation again.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to repeat the thing you just said.
No.
But except that, I understand what you're saying, because you're saying that makes it sound like the slave is replaceable if it's the household.
Not replaceable, in that scenario, disposable.
Disposable.
Yeah, no.
But what I'm, and therefore you're making it sound like you're the ultimate master because you can. But what I'm saying is, even the master's disposable.
But that's
the
why.
household. I'm not more important than the household. If I'll be honest, if for example, can't think of a good example. Say I suddenly, I don't even know. I got into drugs, right? And me getting into drugs put in a situation where I was no longer being a good master, no longer doing my shit as a master. And it was reflecting upon the household. Now, you got to remember, too, for me, personally, I have one slave, but I think of my household as a multi-slave household, because that's the goal, is to have more than one. So the structure is set up for the possibilities of more than one. Mm-hmm. Theoretically speaking, if I started fucking shit up and I started being like, you know what, I like drugs better than the household. I pick drugs over household. If I still had some sense of responsibility in me, I would tell the household to find another master for the household, or to go off on their own, because I'm not the household. The household is above everybody, including myself. I'm not the household. I'm not the master that creates that. I'm a cog. I'm another cog in the machine. It just happens that
There's the steering wheel.
It just happens that my cog is the steering wheel. Thank you, Jade. That was a good example.
But that's where this question all stemmed from, because when we were talking about all of this, the question was really based around that mentality, because recognizing that you are a part of the machine, and then recognizing that the slaves are all part of the same machine, then means that even though your part says what direction to go, your part is no more important and no less important than any other part in the machine, because the machine will break down once you remove a part.
Yes.
Right there, then, isn't that implying, in a way that you do agree that the achievements on both ends are, one, in unison, not independent?
Because you can't have a steering wheel and
I don't think we've disagreed about that at all so far, though.
But that was the whole basis. That was the whole start of the conversation, which is going to be a very short podcast then.
This is
not a
good podcast episode.
No.
Yeah, because I think we all agreed on that in the beginning. Because even when you were saying that it rolls down and it rolls up, I agree with you. Absolutely, it does. I think for me the difference is when you were. Originally, it sounded more like you were saying the achievement is Jade's, or the achievement is Emily's, or the achievement is Rosanne's, or is the achievement yours? Which cog takes possession for the achievement?
You're saying the entire machine.
I'm saying the entire machine takes possession, but part of being, at least for me and the way my household runs, part of my job as part of my cog is I'm the PR. I'm the face that gets put out there.
I'm also not thinking about it in terms of household, because I've never looked at our relationship as a household. So it is a different way
it does
for me
create a
to
different
think
way
about
to think about
Yeah,
it.
well,
No,
that's
And when I
think
think
all
about
three
it
of
that
us-
way, it's okay, yeah. And when I'm thinking about it my way, it's the same thing, because
Right.
it's still a machine.
Because if you think about it
It's
as
just-
a company, and think about Apple, Steve Jobs definitely got all the credit. He didn't have all the achievements, but he got all the credit. He was cog in the machine, but part of his job as the cog was that he was the one PR. He was the one on the stage, and he was the one that people were like, "Oh, you're so smart. Even though he was like, no, not really. Like,
Like, all of the minion are smart.
all these guys are smart. I'm just the ones that telling you what they did, and that's, in a way, that's part of my job. Especially with Roseanne, she's so quiet. It's very much my job to be the PR for the household.
You had.
Yeah, I was gonna...
It's just, I think it's also a tiny bit different for me because when I think about it in terms of my job or anyone else taking credit for what I've achieved at my job, I'm the face at my job. I'm the one that's responsible for everything and how like everything looks when someone comes to visit or when it's audited or when anything. It's my fault if anything's wrong, or it's my success if everything's right. So to say that I guess in my position that someone else, even then, could take credit for that accomplishment would be a little bit out there because it.
Wait a second though, because I've done classes that literally Raven has said, "Thank God it's you doing this and not me," because I've read the directions 10 times out loud and I have no idea what the heck they're saying to do.
I think credit's the wrong word.
But in our case, literally, the accomplishment of graduating summa cum laude was her accomplishment.
And I think...
It's very
Why?
much
Because you
the
wouldn't have
same-
done it if not for her?
I would have, yes. I may not have done it summa cum laude.
So
I might have been
that's
manager.
fine, but like in my case, I would still be a manager if not for
But
that.
But it
But
is
here's the
like
difference.
my face. Literally, I'm going to have to be licensed by the state of New York, and I could be legally held responsible and penally.
penalized.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Things
Yeah,
go
we should.
wrong.
Penally penalized.
I mean, if things go wrong in therapy, I'm liable, and it's not just I'll lose my job, but there could be legal sanctions against me. But that would still be her responsibility because it's what Sir Josh was saying about viewing it as a household, and the household's more important than any individual person. I think that's why people that view it that way have a crime directive to protect yourself.
That would make me feel extremely unimportant as a human. So I can't really view myself that way.
But
especially in terms of my job. In terms of things here, absolutely. In terms of things in my life for the most part, sure. But in terms of what I've accomplished at my job, that I can't think of it that way because it's for me. It's
But
not
you
for
don't
anyone.
need to.
But-
It's not that. Wait a second. It's not necessary, I don't think, for you to view it that way.
No, I guess not, but I don't know.
It's perfectly fine for there to be a difference of opinion. I'm not saying that one way is better than another way. It's just different.
Yeah.
I don't even know how good of a thing it is that literally the first thing in my identity, the thing that matters the most to me, is being Sir Raven's.
For me, that wouldn't be healthy. For me, that wouldn't, because if there were ever to be a separation of me as an individual, as a human, that doesn't have someone responsible for me or that I'm responsible to, and then suddenly there was that separation, I would not be a human anymore.
I wasn't.
So
I literally wasn't.
Wait a
So,
minute.
all right, so
Go ahead.
yeah. So this part sounds like the difference because it sounds like difference in dynamic and the way the dynamic is set up. And so like Roseanne, why do you work?
Because I have to.
She's like, get ready to go pay itself.
Shortest answer humanly possible. Go.
Yeah, well, no, that's basically what we're saying, which is part of why my job is PR, because otherwise it's all literally two-word sentences, two-word answers.
She
But-
said words one time.
One
That
time.
is not true. She talked.
But what is service for you?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tricky question.
What do you do on a daily basis that you consider service to the household?
Breathing.
Pretty much, right? Is work service?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for her job, her going to work, her doing her job is a service to the household. If she's doing well at work, she considers it part of her service to the household.
Currently, I consider it part of my service to him as well. But what would happen if that wasn't a thing then? Would you stop working because it wasn't a
So
service to the household anymore?
It's all about intent, not actions. That's what we talked about in the last podcast, right? So the actions might stay the same, but the intent would change. So the intent she would have to find a new reason
You'd
for
have to
working.
find a new purpose.
A new purpose for working. Yes, absolutely.
Still service to the household, whether there's a master to the household or not.
Well,
Working
but what
is
she's saying
service
is
to
she's
the
worried
house.
about it to solve the solution of the household completely.
Kind
Right.
of, yeah, because
Yeah.
then you would have to redefine
You would,
who you
absolutely.
are, basically.
But what I would say to you is you already had to redefine it once when you got into the household. So
Great
you would just
example
be
is like how
redefining it again.
I asked the person I was in a relationship
Oh, it's
with
about you, Korea.
to do a panel on leather history, and the person thought that there would be no interest in it. And I actually requested, I said, I feel really passionate about it, and I think it would
no
be...
interest in leather history?
Yes, because it would be too boring
Oh, all right,
and
sorry.
people
I'm
wouldn't
like,
be
what the
interested
fuck?
in it. That's
Let
right.
her explain.
And so then, but I said, I really feel passionate about it, and I think that I could make it successful, and would it be okay with you if I pursued it anyway? And I was like, I was told yes, that I could pursue it. And then I was told, well, you got to make a goal, like what would be your goal? And I said, I think if I made $400, I would feel good about it. That would be a nice goal, like realistic. I think I could do that, because if I charged $10 a person, I made a whole little plan. I did. I went and I started pursuing. I did ask for help when I needed it. Like I wanted to ask a certain person to come and be on the panel, but I had never met the person. I was not face to face, not had any conversation period. So I asked my partner to, will you contact this person? And they did. And the person agreed to come, but then the last minute, literally, wasn't able to make it. But everybody else, basically, I did all the footwork. I approached the person who had the venue and asked for it to be donated, to use the space, literally, with no enumeration back to the person. I did everything. I did everything what was needed to do, the basic footwork, any other type of little promotion. I wanted to do a little raffle at the door. I got volunteers.
You got the boot blacks.
Yeah, I got a boot black. And
Go ahead, finish explaining.
anyway, but then the person at some point started to feel like, I do know that there was another fundraiser that we were supposed to be doing, and I don't know, basically my thing got taken over, and the event came along, and I wanted to come and present in the sense of to be the mistress of ceremony, so to speak, like basically saying,
Yeah.
thank you everybody for coming. I wanted to give acknowledgement to the person who donated the venue, to thank the person who was going to be on the panel for coming, blah, 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 that type of thing. And I was told no, that wasn't going to be necessary. And I think there probably was some blurb at some point about, and this is hello and this is Karita, but I think the people that, because I even actually went as far as to anybody who may be RSVP'd or RSVP'd, that I sent out emails. So people knew under the scene in the belly of it that I did this thing, that I was organizing it. But when it came to the public venue part of it and the actual thing happened, it was like there was no sign of me and no sign of, I'm so proud. Like, I'll give an example of real life of someone that a lot of us here may know is Sir Top and Bonnie at BL. Bonnie may or may not, I don't know what she does exactly, but at some point, Sir Top usually acknowledges Bonnie, and she will also go out of her way to acknowledge some volunteer that has really gone beyond, and of course always the volunteer staff in general. But she'll call out certain people and tell them, thank you. This is not me, I'm just the face. All these people, they really make it happen. The thing is, I didn't really get that. And that was like a lot of what my relationship, sadly, was about throughout it. But this was a really big classic case to give you a very specific
a whole lot to make BL happen.
And
all praise to the master, but
yes.
it made me feel like not so great, because it would be nice to say, Rita, you work. Not got to make me emotional, but it would be really nice to hear that all that you did a little bit in public. My girl I'm so proud of her. Thank you for coming and for helping make this.
I'm sorry, can I?
Go ahead, because I have a feeling you're going to say the same exact thing.
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this, so I'm saying somewhere along the way there was no fucking conversation about if we decide to do something public and it's presentation, and I do the footwork because you permit me to do the footwork, and I outline it, I set it up. Are we going to talk about that it is the house presentation, or are we going to be human and acknowledge whomever did the work? Because in my house, we're branding my house. And when one of mine does something, I have no issue saying, I ain't do a motherfucking thing. So-and-so did this, she did this. So if you want to say thank you, don't fucking thank me. You thank my slave who did the fucking work. My slave represents me, so if you thank her, you are thanking me. Don't thank me for work that I did not do.
That's what we were talking about in the podcast, because we were mentioning the fact that when we were discussing it, we were saying that it goes both directions, and that the praise that falls on the slave rolls uphill, and the praise that falls on the master rolls downhill. But in your specific scenario, this was your idea, this was your baby, this was your project.
The person actually told me they didn't believe in it, and they
And
allowed
it
me
was-
to pursue it anyway.
And it was taken over. Now, in a scenario like if you came to me with the same suggestion, and I ended up taking it over for whatever reason, I would still flat out say that this was her baby. And it got to the point where she was no longer capable of managing it by herself, and I stepped in. But I would make sure that she got credit where credit was due. Because either way, it still reflects good on my house, on whether she did all the work, or I did half the work, or I did all the work. It still looks good on my house. And in turn, it will look good on her, and it will look good on me. But that's still saying that I have to give credit where credit is due. I really like this. I might get released just for this.
I have to say that I think that it's quite possible that that there are some people in the community that realize what I told you guys, because I had actually said this to some people to me. I said, I want to do this fundraiser, and my person didn't really feel strongly about it, but he told me he would let me do it anyway. So it would really mean a lot to me if you would help me, because I want this to be successful. I have a real passion about it. Please, will you help me? So, like, the story came out not like, oh, my dominant thinks it's a stupid idea, what an asshole, I want to show him wrong. It really wasn't. It was really, like, genuine. If I came in and I'm like, Emily, man, I really believe in this thing. So he doesn't really think it, but I really feel passionate about it. And I think most people who know me know that, like, when it came to the leather history stuff, I really did feel passionate about it. And that's like how one of the things I did also is I brought a boot black, because I felt that's part of leather history. I thought it'd be cool to have boot black at events and stuff. But the whole thing for it is that I feel that there are people that saw that he didn't even say anything about her. And in that way, the reverse happens is it makes the house look bad, because then people wonder, why doesn't he value his property?
We are also referencing a unique individual. And because of that, we have to recognize where this is coming from. I feel that the four people in here would always give credit where credit is due. What does at work reflects very positively on my house, and I definitely give her all of the credit for that, because in reality, I have absolutely no control over what she's doing at work. I could tell her to quit, I could tell her to do X, Y, and Z, but my micromanagement will just make her job more difficult. In your scenario, we are referring to a less than ideal individual, and you could leave that. And because of that, I have like personal resentments at this point, based off of titles that they've chosen, because I have not been the ideal master in my relationship. I have made many mistakes, and I am in a position where I have to eat shit at times, because I have to earn back her trust. And that is a very painful thing to go through. And it's very difficult. And there are times where I have to take my bruises. And I have to apologize. And I have to own up to the situation I created. And part of that is giving credit where credit is due. Part of that is being able to stand in the situation and go, you did this. Because she did it. Did I help create the scenario? Yes, at times I did. Did I push buttons to get her to drive harder? Yes. Did I give suggestions when she needed it? Yes. But at the end of the day, her actions dictated where she is in her career. And that looks great on me and on my house. But that's her work.
But I don't know about anybody else in here, but at the end of the day, most masters or most heads of the house that I know works under the philosophy of get it done. And if you work under the philosophy of get it done, then it's really quite simple. I am the motherfucker who sits on top and has a vision. I may or may not decide to be part of that development of it. But what I am going to do is pass the message down to my slave. And the message is, get it done. If I do that, then I need to be just as smart to know that without that person doing the work, really, who the fuck am I? So I need to give the credit where it is, because how else are you going to keep the dynamic healthy? Healthy for me is you can't say in my master and slave that I need to respect my property and then I not give them credit. See, because part of respect for me is acknowledging when a person has done something beyond what they really had to do, or taking up the stress of things they really didn't have to, because if I didn't open up my fucking mouth, they wouldn't be in that. So as a master, or even as a daddy, it is my responsibility to make sure that my property is respected. Because if I don't reflect that, to ensure that the community respects my property, then why am I the head of the fucking household?
Got it. Josh.
Thank you.
I actually would argue it a couple of different ways. I do think you have a unique situation with Karita's story, but
Who's the you?
that Karita has because Ben said that it was a
Okay.
unique situation.
Okay.
I don't know if it's as much because of the person. I mean, it has to do with the person, but not because of the same way you're talking about. But because in my mind, when Karita was talking about what she was talking, if Rochelle came to me and told me that there was something she wanted to do, and I said, I don't believe in it, then it wouldn't be happening. So there was that mix. So for me right there, before you even got farther down in your story, I'm like, so he said he wasn't interested, but he still
Wanted to let me try.
wanted to let you do it. So what was the reason for him letting you do it?
Because
Was
it
he
might
letting
pan
you
out.
do
Yeah.
it?
No, I think because he felt, or whomever the fuck it was, felt that, well, if I smack this failure in front of her face, she'll buckle down and listen.
Yeah, because it was
When
expected
you just
to
said that
fail.
question right now, when you just said that, I thought what she said, which is not a thought I've ever had before until when you asked that question. Her and I had the same thought.
But I thought the opposite. I thought
You
I'm
thought
gonna
because
let
it might succeed, and then
I
I'll
can
be able
take
to
all the
take
credit.
it?
Yes.
And
take all
also,
the credit.
there's also
Wait.
the whole argument of if it is something that she truly wants to do, by denying her, you're automatically knocking her down and creating a dynamic where
But-
there's going to be resentment.
But you
But-
just
but-
said
and I
that
think-
he's unique. So when you
I
say
didn't say
someone
he was
is, when someone, Ben said that he was unique, and when you use that word unique and a master or owner to me, I'm sorry, call it street smarts. I consider them a fucking asshole.
I was just going to say, I actually thought you were going to go the other way, Master Caden, and I was going to say, don't forget the person in the little yellow school bus is also unique.
Okay. Jade, say what you want to say real quick, please.
Yeah.
I think in Karita's particular situation, I've always thought that for him it was a win. Because if you fell on your face, then he could always be like, see, you wanted to try this one thing, and I told you,
You didn't
Karita,
listen to me.
then you didn't listen to me,
Yet
and
again.
you ruined the whole thing. And if it was a success, he could get out there and boast and have his chest bowed out and get to do what he liked to do.
Which is be out in front.
Which is be out in front. Whereas if Sir Raven and I had had the same conversation, it would have been like what Sir Josh was saying. If I really came to her with something and she's, no, I don't believe in that, it wouldn't have gone any further. And I would have been the one saying, hey, I think that I can pull this thing off, but I don't like public attention. I don't want to be publicly acknowledged. Will you do what you're good at, which is being butch-tastic and full of charisma and all the things that I'm not. Because
Comes
she's
with a
got,
song.
she's got a lot of charisma. I have zero charisma. So I'm happy to be the brains and the workhorse behind something and have somebody else take the credit. And I think that in some ways we're presupposing that everybody likes and responds and appreciates public thank yous, and I don't. I like private.
There is.
Private
In
stuff.
a way, what happened is what you're explaining about yourself is what happened in the sense that I didn't want to be the person in the front of the panel, and also because all praise master, I wanted the person that was, you know, in my relationship that I was in a relationship with to feel a part of it, because I did feel it was going to be successful, and I wanted because I want that person to feel good about the whole thing, and they like being out in front, so I put this person as the person out in front, never realizing that I wouldn't get at least a little bit of my wonderful girl put this together. Something.
Not just my girl, my wonderful girl.
Yes,
All right, just because I didn't actually get to finish, just on a quick little side note, I think, and I hate to say it, but the more and more I hear about it, the more and more, because I know the way the three, I know the way Karita, Jade, and Saraven feel about the whole thing with you and your past relationship, but I actually don't vilify it as much as you guys do. I actually consider it more of a lack of actual experience and lack of dominance. So a lot of the things that I hear, to me, seem to be really bad fucking rookie mistakes, which are okay when they're rookie mistakes, but they're bad when you're rookie mistakes and you're appearing to be experienced, because then they get expounded even more. But then the other part of it is the dominance, because I've done things where I let Roseanne do things, and they are exactly for that reason, so I can then go and be like, I told you it wasn't going to work. But where I assert my dominance is that I'm very forward about the fact that I don't believe in this. But if you believe in it, go for it. But I'm telling you right now, it's probably not going to pass. And at the same time, there'll be things where I'm like, I'm not sure if this is going to succeed, but if it succeeds, it's going to be really awesome. So you know what? Try it. Right. Let's see what happens. It might be cool. It's not enough for me to invest my time, but I'm letting you invest some time into it.
Okay.
Just to see. I got it. Hold on. You guys were talking about, so far, I think in the conversation, it's been about the master giving praise to the slave and what the master should be doing, but I think it's twofold. I think ideally, because initially what I was going to say before I got into the whole conversation was, why do you need the praise from all the other people?
See,
and why do you need the acknowledgement from all the other people? I think it's twofold. I think in an ideal world, I know, right? Yeah.
No, go ahead.
The slave isn't asking for the praise, and the master is acknowledging the praise.
And let me say,
but the second the slave asks for that praise, it's no longer ideal. Let
me say this real quick, so we got some clarity, and then Master Peyton. The only reason why I called it All Praise the Master, and I titled all of the podcasts a certain way, because it's a play on words.
I know.
It's okay. So it's not that the person was asking for praise. I just called it that because...
No, in what she described, it sounded like that.
No.
I wasn't basing it off the title. Okay. Just on the words that she said.
Yeah, I get you. But I'm saying when we first did the first part, I titled it that.
Yes.
It had nothing to do with her.
I'll answer that after they have a chance.
Go ahead, Master Peyton. I'm actually totally confused.
No, I'm not confused, but...
You look annoyed.
You're like, what?
I am going to be subjective here. In how you explained it, there's two things that came up. One, that I will allow someone to do something, but I'm never going to tell them I don't believe in it. I'm not going to use those
No, sorry, I was agreeing with you.
She gave it a look, son.
I'm
Also,
not.
you're looking, so don't worry about it.
I'm not going to use those words because for me, already they have negative connotations behind it. I don't want to do that to anybody. And what I will say is that you can strive to accomplish this, and I hope that it works well. If you have questions that you need to ask me to give you guidance on, I will do that. Because your time, it ain't your fucking time. It's my motherfucking time.
Which is why I
But
asked permission.
if I want to make sure that you feel safe in an environment to grow, and sometimes the growth is going to be positive, and sometimes it's going to be negative, then I'm going to give you that. And I think this is where the daddy part comes in. Because no matter where it's at, my hand is under your ass. I am not going to let you fall. I'm not going to let you fall to the depth where you're going to feel like you were a failure. What I might do is stop you midway if I perceive it not going to work out well. To say, why don't we redirect it in this way so you have a safety net on it? But the other thing is that when you said because you felt a particular way because you didn't get the praise, it sent a second message to me. It made me feel that it wasn't really about that particular act, but there wasn't some praise coming along before any of that happened.
Yep.
And this is where I find fault with you. If you're with someone and they are not mature enough to say, you're doing great, or I really appreciate whatever it is that you're doing, and you stay in that, and that hasn't transpired within the first fucking 90 days, because if you're a master or you're a daddy, you can see growth within 90 days, because a slave is acclimating themselves to your protocols and your rules. So you can see growth. But if that wasn't happening on a regular basis, and I don't mean every day, maybe every 6 months or something like that, then that is your fault for staying there.
Yeah, it is. It is my fault for staying there.
But the question is, for me, is that understanding that you got jackasses out there that feel like whoever's in their house, whatever they do, they're going to take the props from it. Did you take it as a learning lesson, or did you take it as a personal blow? There's a difference.
At the time that happened, I don't know. I was very confused throughout the entire relationship. I spent a lot of time being confused, trying to figure out how to make a person happy, or not even how to make them happy. But it seems that there's so much chaos and contradiction. There was no real structure, no fucking manual, no nothing. That it was always changing. So I was trying to figure out. So I don't know.
Can we not talk
The
about
congruities
this
you talked
this
about.
particular topic anymore? And I'm going to tell you why. For whatever reasons, whomever this person is, you haven't let it go. So can we move on to another topic?
Yes, I just want to say though, Master Kid, this has been like a while now, and if we keep moving on every time Karita gets a little teary eyed over this
She's
topic,
already doing good though. What are you talking about?
I will say she is doing fucking better than every time before.
She's
But I will say that
fantastic.
if we move on every time Karita gets a little teary eyed over the topic, we're never gonna fucking touch the topic.
Well, so
Say
you
what he
could
wants
do
to
the
say.
topic in a different way, but my point is that every time the topic or anything like that, and she allows it to control her, it does nothing except for rip off whatever band-aid that was
You're
good
absolutely
there.
right.
And I really like to stay away from this.
I agree with you. I will say though, from what I've seen, now there might be a lot of things going on in the background, obviously that I don't see, but from what I've seen, every time we push it, actually seems to help. because
she wasn't there.
no offense,
Something like
Karita,
Something
but
like
you
that.
don't seem to be doing this shit on your own. You seem to need other people to push you into the topic.
Actually, I
Yeah,
have
she
started to
brought up
go
the
to
topic.
stuff.
She does.
Well, no, you do. You bring up the topic, but what I'm saying, which is different, which is what I'm saying, it's actually gotten a lot better.
Oh.
She's moving toward indifferent.
She's moving.
That's wonderful.
Not necessarily even towards indifferent. I don't know if I ever expect you to get indifferent about it because it fucking happened to you.
That's her goal.
But I do think you've gotten you're getting closer to getting past it, which is different than getting indifferent.
I'm just trying to
about it.
work through it.
Right.
To me, that's like a thing that Jade and I talk about. Is they're trying to get past something. You try to work through it. So
Yeah.
you come out intact on the other side instead of pretending that something. Getting past it is like ignoring it, never dealing with it, and then never really.
It's just a
But
matter
look
of
at
wording.
you.
But look at how she.
But look at you, how
we know
great.
this, right? Because usually if she
Right.
starts to talk about it,
Yes.
she would say, "I'm sorry, I don't mean that." But she's not even doing
Look
that.
at
She just
you.
leans
Yeah,
back
yeah.
and she's like,
Usually
"Oh my
this
God."
conversation
Like I
ends
said,
with
I'm
her leaving
coming
the
to
room.
it from
Yeah,
a subjective
she is.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm a person that
Yeah.
looks at body language and all of that stuff. And my
She's
thing
doing
is,
It is emotional for me because the thing is that what happened is you said something that actually
Oh.
Josh said once. No, it's not your fault.
No,
It's
you
okay
did.
that you said that it's your fault. You stayed, and that's why I said to you, yes, you're right. It's my fault that I
See?
stayed.
Yeah.
It's my fault. There's nobody forced me to stay. That was the problem, is that I stayed. So that's what I have to deal with. Why did I stay? But in Josh, one time when we were coming back from a trip, and we were talking about some things that had happened in the relationship, and Josh said, "Yeah, Karita, but you stayed." And I'm like, "You're right, Josh. I stayed. That was my fault because that's what I did." And people will, and I have to accept that people always,
What time
there
you
will
gotta
be
go?
people who will see certain things that way. Oh, but she stayed. It's that kind of, I don't even want to get into that topic. It's such a
about
political
30 minutes.
bullshit. But there's a whole thing with, oh, but you stayed. But you're right. I stayed.
Now,
Wait,
to help
okay,
me out,
let it go.
The more moving it a little bit away from the personal end and moving it back into the general MS.
oh, can I say
Topic.
my thing then? Because mine was personal.
Make
Sorry.
it quick.
No, just the more and more I talk to him, and I've been hearing to you, and I think the more and more, because you're right, we had a conversation in the ride, and I said, but you stayed, right? And you keep saying, I don't know why I stayed. The more and more I've been listening to it, the more and more I've been thinking, I think why you stayed is the same reason why it got fucked up. And it's because there's all these incongruities in it. At one point, thing is good, thing is bad, thing is good, thing is bad, thing is good,
You
thing
hit
is
it
bad.
right
So you're
there.
like, wait, well, where the is it good, is it bad, is it good, is it bad? And
Well,
then
you hit it right there, and actually that answers a question that she brought up about, because actually we're trying to talk about all praise the master, and one of the things that will happen is you're like, you know what would happen? Why would you, if somebody never gave you praise before? Okay, never is a big word. You can't say never. Of course, it was like, thank you for breakfast, or thank you for taking care of me. There were thank yous along the way. There was, I'm not sure, I'm sure there were
Scooby
tokens of
snacks.
appreciation somewhere along the road. It never is too big of a word. But what happens is people who have type of personality disorders sometimes, the thing about them is that they can be really charming. And if they weren't charming and attentive and loving and caring some of the time, you would get the fuck out of there like hell on wheels. But when the person is loving and affectionate and charming and charismatic, when it needs to be, when they're asking for forgiveness and attempting to apologize to their best ability, when they're doing those things when it needs to be, then that's the
To make you
how
stay.
do you
Yeah.
then your mind gets fucked up.
It does.
See, with the specific scenario
I'll speak
of
to that.
creating an event that the master does not necessarily think that there's an audience for, this is not a Scooby snack moment. This is not WAP. Oh, that was something that we mentioned in an earlier podcast where it's like the thank yous
sorry.
are like Scooby snacks, they're treats.
That's
Just,
something,
you did good,
that's
here's a
something I
treat.
talk about. Yeah.
This is not a Scooby snack moment. This is you went above and beyond your representation of the house. Therefore, your praise is warranted because you put yourself out there against your master's better judgment, and your master gave you permission. Your master said, "I do not think there's an audience for this, but I we'll let you do this. You deserve praise at that point because you achieved something. You accomplished something on your own. And that's something that now you warrant praise because the master's involvement was minimal. And that looks good on your house.
Again, though, you're talking about it from the master's point of view. Does that mean that at the same time, the slave should be requiring praise?
I don't think that there's necessarily the opinion of requirement of praise, because the praise in this form could just be an acknowledgement, a public acknowledgement. That is something that I do not think is expected or required from the slave, but I do think it is something that falls on the master as their obligation to better their slave.
Here's a thought, and I'm not coming from the master, coming from past experience. When I did something beyond the wildest, there are two things that I needed. I needed the acknowledgement that I pleased my master by making the house look good. I just needed, you did good. I'm good. That would go a long way. The secondary thing is that for me, in that slave being, it gave me the motivation to fucking do more. Mm-hmm. Not for the praise, but because I acquired something and I can do it.
But here's the thing. Did you need that good job from the master or publicly to everybody else?
No, I don't give a shit about anybody else.
And that's my point. And I can actually relate this, as weird as it sounds, this actually relates a little bit to Slavecraft. Not the book.
I didn't say nothing, my face was
not that writing in Slavecraft, but as someone who's written stuff before, Slavecraft has always bugged the fuck out of me because because Guy Baldwin gets all the credit.
Yep.
Guy Baldwin didn't write it.
I think he did, but anyway. Okay.
As someone who's been author to writings, when you're an author to stuff, one of the biggest fucking kick in the balls is someone who takes your writing and claims it as their own. Mm-hmm. That's why plagiarism is such a big fucking deal. Mm-hmm. But in Slavecraft, it's by what's it they call it?
Grateful slave.
A grateful slave. Thank you. I was going to say an anonymous slave. A grateful slave. Same difference. I used to be very, in a way, it still bugs me that it's by a grateful slave because I'm like, and then by Guy Baldwin, and then Guy Baldwin gets to do all the speeches and stuff as a result. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but you're not the grateful slave. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you think about it from the slave's point of view, from his point of view, or their point of view, I'm assuming it was a he because it was Guy Baldwin, they didn't need the public. They just cared that Guy Baldwin thought it was good enough to get it published, and they cared it was good enough to be published. And that's what I've been and that's where I'm getting at. Is my initial response is, are you looking for... If you're looking for your master to stand up there and be like, and this is my wonderful slave that did this, that's looking for public acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. Are you serving the public? Or are you serving your master? And which is it that you're looking for? And once you figure out what it is that you're looking for, then you can figure out, then why am I here?
Did you get the private acknowledgement?
Wait, I want to I'm not sure that how I glossed this part over or not. I think I said it, but not clear enough. Really what happened is I had meant to have my dominant be the facilitator for a panel, the Leather History panel. I had planned that I was going to go up and open the event. That's like the mistress of ceremony.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then you introduce the facilitator.
But I was told no, that I would not be doing that.
Potential form of praise.
No, and I'm talking about this was like fairly close. I don't remember if it was the day before, the week before.
It was the day before you called me.
And I was told, no, that wasn't going to be Naris. I was deleted from my own event. And because it was my dominant, I didn't really have a voice to say. I just was like sitting there. Well, now
Keep your
what?
dress down.
Yeah.
We can see
But
your
that-
business.
but
I
Oh, okay. But that was the praise.
But
That
do you
was the
understand? I
potential
didn't.
But that would be the
praise.
public praise. So you get private praise?
Honestly, no. He mentioned that I was there and that the panel and stuff. I'm sure.
No,
That's
you're not
still,
answering
that's
the
still
question.
public praise.
You're not
If
answering
you
the
get
question.
private
When you
praise.
went home and ride the train or whatever.
Probably at some point.
No, there's not at some point. Either the
Put it
mother.
this way, whatever, if it happened,
Either it happened
it wasn't
or it
memorable enough for
didn't.
me to be able to remember
Okay.
right now and tell
Now
you
that doesn't mean it
definitively.
didn't happen. That means that
Right.
you might not be caring about the personal praise, which then you have to talk, and then you have to think
Which
about
is
a
why
different
I pointed
situation.
out. Was why I pointed out this was my event that the person told me they didn't actually believe in, but that they were going to let me try to do it anyway, and then deleted me from my own event.
Oh, no, that is.
But
I'm
can
not-
you see what I'm saying?
I'm
It's
not
like-
saying that shit doesn't fucking sound shady, but I am
No,
saying that's not what we're.
It's
No,
why
it's a
I'm
little bit
pointing
different.
out is
Yeah.
because if I hadn't been deleted from my own event, I don't feel I would have really needed the praise, because then all the praise would have gone to the master and to the household. And I'm going to expand more on another detail of this much I do remember, because during the course of me developing this, I was saying, okay, because I told you there was another fundraising event that was going to be happening like within a week, 2 weeks or something, within a short period of time, within the next month. There was a second fundraiser event that we're helping, that was supposed to be for him, but I was helping to organize. This one was one I was doing alone because he didn't believe in it, but
Right.
he let me do it, right? He started to feel like that my event was going to be taking away from his event. So in an attempt, but one of the things I kept saying was, but it's for us, it's for the house. It's like, it's gonna, and it really was. The money
It's
was
not
for
for
a
the
travel
house
fund.
unless he wants it for the house.
And
It was,
he-
no, it was for the travel fund. It
Yeah,
was
but
for
you're
us-
not listening.
Okay.
You're not listening right now. Because he didn't take ownership of the concept that his, I don't know, partner, girl,
Yes,
whatever,
that's his girl.
okay, girl had the ability to do something and it worked out perfectly fine because he didn't buy into it. He didn't make an investment in you. I'm sorry. Because if I say I don't believe it's going to happen, I'm not letting you know I'm not making an investment in your idea. I'm not making an investment in that you have the abilities to do this. I think just right from the beginning, it
Well,
just
that's the
was
thing. It's
nasty.
just, like I said, there's incongruities all the way
Yeah,
along.
it was-
So it's hard because it's like there's a part of me that this was a thing that was constantly said to me. What you're saying to me is about how you shouldn't need to have it any kind of praise in public. You shouldn't need to have any kind of acknowledgement. Just that you're doing it or that it's being done, that it's pleasing me should be enough.
Jay.
Okay, all right, Jay.
But apparently it wasn't enough. I wanted some to
Right.
feel at some point publicly like I mattered to the person. And that like I was of value.
Oh, shoot.
I didn't feel valued is what it kept coming down to. I didn't feel valued.
Right.
It's,
Jay.
I want to make a distinction here. It sounds like what I'm hearing is if someone is a slave, then they shouldn't respond or need or crave or whatever public praise. I think that is a human nature trait. Some people like public praise.
Mhm.
For some people, that is going to be their love language of praise. And for other people, they're going to prefer private acknowledgement, private praise. That's a human trait. That's not a slave. I don't think that we should insert the idea that that is a slave thing. It's just how someone is wired. Whether they're going to actually enjoy that and respond to that one way or another. And I think the point is, hopefully, the owner that you have is in tune to what type of a person you are and provides that. I don't think it really matters if the person in question likes public praise. So what? Give it to them. Doesn't take away anything from the master. If anything, I think it makes you all look pretty damn gallant when you're like, and by the way, my slave has pulled this shit off. I don't know about those of you at least that
She pulled
are
that shit off.
thinking
Can you
about
believe
building
that?
a household. When you hear that from a slave's mentality, what I'm always thinking is that person's secure in their mastery. they're secure in themselves. Me personally, I don't like public praise. I've never, ever, not from anybody, even if you take the dynamic out of it, I don't like public praise. I find it embarrassing. I don't like public shows of, I don't like it. But I don't think it's because I'm a slave. I think it's just how I came out into the world.
I think in the specific scenario that we're talking about, either an acknowledgement that it could work, not an off the bat going, you're wrong, could have been enough of
That
a
would have been
praise.
enough to fix the whole thing. Right.
But that's the fundamental problem. You start off in the beginning with, it's not going to work, you're going to fail. Then it carries on, you take over the event, and then you have the opportunity to acknowledge the work, and you choose not to. And even the acknowledgement could have been, yes, you can introduce the panel. You can acknowledge the people that worked, and that by itself can be enough praise. And all of those points faltered, and then there was no public acknowledgement. There was not even really a notable private acknowledgement of the work that was done towards the house.
Well, I do just want to make a quick thing. Notable private acknowledgement is a very personal, subjective thing.
Which is
He
why
might feel like he made notable private acknowledgement,
I'm sure he does.
but she doesn't feel that it was notable private acknowledgement. I just want to point that out real quick. But Jade, you had your hand up again. And then Master Kaden. Sorry, I started stacking, I know.
we should actually do that from now on. That seems to be working.
She's been trying to, but then I started picking it
Yeah, you
up.
start running your mouth.
Damn, look,
I think that anybody that put in the time and effort to make something happen, and they had, probably 2 months at least
It was about 2
of
months.
working on it, and that whole time you were thinking that the end result was going to look like this, and then you get blindsided the night before. I think that would be a huge disappointment to anyone. And slaves are just people, like masters are just people. And it goes to poor communication that if he intended all along, if he had said to you from the jump, I don't think this is going to work out, prove me wrong. Mm-hmm. But if it goes great, I'm going to get up in front of everyone and I'm going to be so proud of you to put my name into this. You would have had a very different outcome in your mind for how that final night was going to work out, rather than what happened, which is not what you were thinking you were working toward for 2 months. And I think that the blindsiding of it ended up being a very big problem, and also the fact that, frankly, you're a person who responds to tokens. If he had gone and bought you a single damn rose or something and privately gave it to you that night and said, I am so damn proud of you for pulling this off. Look at what you did here.
Or if you would increase
That-
your rank or something. Yeah.
But I'm just making an example.
Like military stuff.
Okay, I'm sorry, that wasn't the best example. But I'm just saying, something that would have cost very little thought and very little money would have been very huge to you. That was the difference between it being at least a non-notable, not something that sticks out in your mind, and something that does. You've got to know who you're dealing with.
And the idea of all praise and master, which was supposed to be the topic, is that when I was doing all this, though, you have to realize my goal during it was never, I can't wait for this to succeed so I can get some praise. I really was doing it thinking, I'm doing really something I really feel passionate about within our community.
That's what she kept saying.
So that your goal was achieved.
And also that to raise money, and I met that goal.
So both goals were achieved.
And so you know how it hurts when it's like the person doesn't even really acknowledge that we did anything.
But your goals were achieved. But you had your hand up. Go.
Yes. Stop talking. It's Master Kaden.
But I'm hearing conflicting messages from you right now.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I think it's something that you need to sit back and think about. Because if your primary concern was that I'm collecting money to go for the travel fund, and I'm doing this because I have a passion about it, and you accomplished it, how come your self-acknowledgement wasn't good enough?
I feel really good about it.
Doesn't
As an
sound
event.
like it.
No, I
I
think
don't feel good about my relationship. The way that what happened with the person I was supposed to be, the person who was supposed to value me, the person that I cared about and took really good care of, in my opinion, that obviously is doing pretty damn good today because A, he's alive. No, I'm serious.
No, I know. I'm just laughing.
So I feel good about my event. I don't feel good about the relationship.
okay. And so on that note, real quick, let me just say.
I have my hand up next.
Yeah, but we're masticating sleep. Let me just say, the reason why I titled it All Praise the Master is because I gave the example. Me. I did it. Okay, not her. Me. Okay, gave the example of, if that's right, bow down, bitches. Gave the example of, then you, if that's the case of getting praise, and the master says to the slave, any praise that comes to me trickles down to you. Which means that I don't have to tell you that someone said, oh, that event was really great. Because their attitude was, any praise that they got, by default, it was your praise. And that's bullshit in some instances. All right, you can leave. Bye.
I heard this, but
Damn, you're out. Are you even talking?
the next, I think one of the topics we need to talk about is that in the way that I feel that the appreciation or whatever was set for. My question is, how many times does a submissive or a slave think about it vice versa?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
What do you mean vice versa?
How many
Like-
times do we show our owners?
No, I didn't. I'm not saying show. I'm saying actually articulate. I appreciate how you handle the property, or I appreciate how you have my best interest and concern. It's a responsibility. I have no problem doing that. But in the same token, how sometimes I think in a lot of dynamics that isn't even thought about from the S side at all.
Actually, it really is. We just don't tell you guys that we talk about it.
No,
I'm sorry, that's my answer.
I have an answer for that. I was actually going to ask that. That was why I had my hand up.
Because we talk about
Was if slaves know what kind of praise their master likes to receive it. If so, do they praise the master? And I don't think of it as praise. I think of it as acknowledgement. But every day, that's how often I say thank you. Specifically, thank you for different things. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you that you cooked breakfast. I said that twice today. I say thank you for things every single day, and I acknowledge every single day. Because I think that you guys need to hear it too, because otherwise, what's the point?
Like I said, I had you hook up with Dinah because out of 5 years, not one time.
Wow. Really?
And I'm one of those kind of.
No, thank you. I say thank you every day for different things. Usually I do, especially if I'm in a lot of pain, it's just a generic thank you for taking care of me, but I really do mean, and I'll elaborate, like I felt really poorly today. It meant a lot to me that you were here, just that you were here in the house, that I wasn't alone being in pain. Thank you. Every day I say thank you.
I want you, before Master Maiden leaves, I want you to answer her question.
Which one?
The one she just asked.
Oh, that would be the same as Jade. I say thank you all the time. And I acknowledge you all the time and everything you accomplish and everything that you do for both of us or just for you. I thank you for doing things for you.
There's the Chris Rock joke about how many times the kids are always saying thank you, Mama, for this delicious dinner, and how many times do your kids ever say, hey, thanks, Daddy, the light bill's paid. I always thought that was funny, but I actually do that. I'm actually, I think, 2 or 3 times this week, I've said thank you that I live in an atmosphere where I never have to worry about, is the rent note paid? Or is a person that came to the door, they come into the door to tell us the rent note's not paid, or I never have to worry about the electric being turned off. Thank you. Every time I go into Whole Foods, I thank her because I'm like, you know what? I feel really freaking fancy that I
You
can
go
go
into
into Whole
Whole
Foods
Yes.
and afford to buy anything in there.
And not get
Thank
kicked
you.
out.
Honest to God, like it's daily because I think otherwise you guys are just as inclined to feel taken advantage of or taken for granted as a slave can feel.
And that's why I think it's a two-way street, as I've said before. Ashley takes care of the finances. When she reports back to me on where we stand, and there is more money available than there should be, or the bills are paid far in advance of when they need to be.
That's the end of this episode. Kind of left it on a cliffhanger. Stay tuned because I'm sure this topic will come up again. Bye.